So another incredible part of your story is the fact, and you mentioned this already, you've been a writer your entire life.
Hmm.
You've written for newspapers, magazines. You've written 5 books. You've got all of these written words in your life, and
Hmm.
never wrote a song. But yet, you've always kind of on the peripheral had that music around you. Even during your hiatus, I imagine it was something you were thinking about. So, how do you transition from that, the kind of the long form of the written word, and then trying to do that and tell those same types of stories in a shorter form in the song world?
Yeah, I guess that's the real trick. Is a story song like let's take 3 hours from Memphis. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and so you have to know the basics of telling stories. You know, uh, I like the opening lines of that are started headed south on my way. Started out years ago there today. Well, I mean, in those words right there, you kind of get the idea of where things are. So I guess what I've had to learn to do is to be much more dense in my writing. No wasted words.
More to the
Um,
point.
more to the point. There's no warming up in the bullpen, man. This
Yeah.
is a song, and if I don't help you understand what story I'm going to tell you in just a few seconds, you shouldn't listen. You don't have a reason to listen. So that's been the learning. But in addition to writing, I mean, I had a business where I employed writers and I edited stuff and I scribbled on writers and I taught writers and I taught people how to write for decades. So it was sort of like, hey, doctor, take your own medicine, dude. You got some
Yeah.
extra words there. So it was actually putting myself through the meat grinder of my own standards that helped me to, I think, do okay at writing songs.
Yeah, good stuff here, man. But I do have a question for you because I've listened to your songs. So I know that you are to the point, but I also know that you're still being descriptive. You still have flowery language in your music. So, how do you know from a writing standpoint that balance there? How to be to the point, but still have your descriptive words and your flowery language like that?
Yeah, that was something I learned as an advertising writer was to try not to use words that are kind of like I was a cook when I was in college. Kind of worked, it was actually a pretty high end restaurant. People say, "Oh, you were a chef." I was like, "No, I was really a cook." But one of the things I heard is don't put water in things. Why would you put water in there? Put in wine, put in stock, put something else in that adds flavor. So I look for words like is or are and was and were. And those are the worst verbs you could use in the world.
Yeah.
You have to use active words. So I think when I write a sentence, a phrase, a verse, a chorus, I then go back through and say, are there any of those words in there that didn't add any flavor to the soup, man? And if so, um, you got to add those. And I think, if we're just talking the craft of writing, and I don't overanalyze it too much, but I think verbs are real important. They tell a lot of the story, and we're so used to using adjectives, and I certainly use those too. But I think it's a combination of those. So I don't know. I try to be super critical of what I write, thinking back to how I was kind of a hard ass to a whole bunch of people who I scribbled with a red pen on their stuff for 30 years. So I'm trying to do the same thing to my stuff.
Yeah, I love this, man.